College football recruiting has gone wild. Thomas Castellanos passing up the keys to a job where he hasn't even taken a snap. LSU moms suiting up on their son's official visit. And managing editor for Last Word on College Football, Tony Siracusa, joins the show to preview Matt Rhule in Nebraska's season and break down the recruiting weekend this past weekend where Coach Rhule had a giant bull in Nebraska's weight room while rocking the lid Tom Osborne wore during the 1994 season. Man, in the second half of this show, Cleveland Browns reporter for The Athletic, Zac Jackson, joins the show to break down Shedeur Sanders' development as well as Dylan Gabriel's development. Man, this is going to be a massive show. This and much more on the other side. Welcome back to another edition of Bailey Price Media Live.
Bailey Price Media, I like it.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another edition of Bailey Price Media Live. Today I got a very special show for you. Managing editor for Last Word on College Football, Tony Siracusa, joins the show to preview Matt Rhule, Nebraska season, talk to Deshaun Foster in UCLA, and Nico Iamaleava takes over at quarterback over there. And then the second half of the show, Cleveland Browns reporter Zac Jackson joins the show as well. Without further ado, folks, if you're watching, hit that like button, subscribe, become a member. Without further ado, our special guest is here. Tony Siracusa, my main man, joins the show. Tony, happy Tuesday. How you doing, my man?
Hey, Bailey. It's an honor to join you.
I appreciate you joining, man. I really do. And, man, lots to talk about. We're getting closer to the season, almost to July, man. These, slow months, no sports right now. It's a little slow, but we're almost to the season. I think we got a massive season, college football looks a lot different than may have 6 years ago or so, but I'm with it. I'm really excited to cover it. Let's get into it, and let's start with Matt Rhule in Nebraska. Mm-hmm. So they just had a massive recruiting weekend this past weekend, hosting several recruits in the class of 2026, and in doing so, Matt Rhule had a giant bull in the Cornhuskers weight room. Now, Tony, I wanted to ask you, let's preview their season. Going into the season, they got Dylan Rhule at quarterback. Mm-hmm. He played as a true freshman last season, up and down season for sure. But nonetheless, I think I'm optimistic, at least headed into his second season. I'm really excited to see. Let me ask you, how do you feel about Nebraska so far? And give us a preview of their 2025 team.
Yeah, I think one of the things you got to do if you're a Nebraska fan is understand where you are, understand your place in the college football world. I was one of those people years ago. It's funny, you were talking about what college football was for you 6 years ago. Imagine an old guy like me and what college football was, decades ago, right? And you look back, and Nebraska likely made a mistake going to the Big Ten. I think, that's been discussed a lot. They probably would have fared better staying in the Big 8/Big 12. But the money was compelling, right? I mean, let's be reality. That's where college football is. That's what's caused all the sea change of realignment. And that's what's going to cause the soon to come new realignment in about 4 to 5 years when the TV contracts get renewed all over again. And there's another push for this. Nebraska is doing fine. They're not doing great, but they're doing fine. I mean, Matt Rhule is 12-13 after his 2 seasons there. He was 7-6 last season, so a significant jump last season, but was only 3-6 in the Big Ten. And there comes the complexity if you're Nebraska, because you can be a good team. A good team right now for Nebraska means a 9-win season and a second-tier bowl game, right? You're not at the level of Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Washington, Oregon, whatever the case may be in the Big Ten. That's okay. You don't have to be the Nebraska of Tom Osborne back in the day. You're not. It's a different complexion to college football. You know, you got the bowl win. Yeah, it was a pinstripe bowl. But hey, if you're in Nebraska, year 2 of the Matt Rhule era, you're happy that you got a bowl win, right? Because look, he was a struggling entity coming into Nebraska. He got run out of Carolina, you know, the Panthers head coaching job. Yeah. It was pretty ugly. And I'll tell you, having moved, I guess, a little over 3 years ago now from Los Angeles out to Charlotte, I can tell you that the Panthers fans still find Matt Rhule to be an easy target. And it's kind of unfair. It's like, move on, guys, because he's at Nebraska. He's doing well. He had the 20th ranked recruiting class for the upcoming season for 2025, and the 13th ranked portal class. Hey, that's not bad, man. Coming off a 17-6 season, that means the guy is working it. He's working hard. Yeah. He's already, of course, like most programs, moved on to the 2026 recruiting class. He's getting a little kitschy with a bowl in the workout room and, you know, doing that kind of stuff. But you know what? If you're him, there is no limit to what you aren't willing to throw out there, right? You're throwing everything but the kitchen sink out there.
Exactly.
Because it is a hyper-competitive recruiting field. It's a hyper-competitive portal landscape. You've got the changes coming up with the revenue sharing for players. Clearly, if you're in Nebraska, you're going to put a large chunk of that $20.3 million into your football program, because that is what makes Nebraska what it is.
Exactly.
He's got in the upcoming season. I mean, he's got 17 players out of the transfer portal. He got some big guys. And I talk about the 2025 class a little bit because that's what helps sell the 2026 class, right?
Right.
You get a guy like Rocco Spindler from Notre Dame, or you get a guy like Hassan McCullough from Oklahoma. These are big-time programs. They're outstanding players, highly recruited players. The fact that you pulled them in after the season you had, that helps sell your 2026 class. He's only got 8 hard commits for 2026. So there's a lot of work to do. But I think probably, and you mentioned the calendar, we're nearing the end of June. Once you get into July, you start conference media days. You get the Big Ten media days, and Big Ten media days this year is in Las Vegas, which is going to have a strange feel to it. But you get the SEC media days in Atlanta and the ACC here in Charlotte. And then training camp starts right after that. So these last, 7 days of June are really a closing time for that 2026 class, at least until you get, you'll have a little bit of time in July, and then August, man, you're in camp. The season's on, right? So he's got to close hard. And I think that's why you look at what he did. He had, like you said, a huge number of recruits in this last weekend. I'm looking at easily, I think 5 to 6 guys that probably commit within the next handful of days. Probably even before, we get to the end of this week. And he's already got guys like Rex Waterman and Hayden Ainsworth. He's got some good guys up front. So he's really done a good job with the offensive line. You mentioned Dylan Raiola. I expect a lot more out of Dylan as a sophomore. He went through the freshman bumps that all freshman quarterbacks do. But, they've got the entire Raiola family there, right? They've got his younger brother coming in. They've got his dad there on the staff. I mean, they've made it about as comfortable of an atmosphere as you could make for him. They've got a tight end also coming in, Luke Sorensen, who I expect big things from, kid from Servite down in Southern California. Really, I've seen the film on this kid, really good tight end, going to be a good outlet for Raiola. So I think that there's a lot of momentum for Nebraska, for Matt Rhule. I'm just kind of guiding Nebraska fans. Don't get over your skis. Be realistic. Don't get over your skis. But if you can pull off another 2 wins this year, improve on the conference record, get to maybe a second-tier bowl game, man, you're moving, you're going.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking away from what you said, I mean, I'm a big fan of Coach Rhule. I think he's a winner. I think he's a college coach. I think him going to the Panthers showed that. I mean, going back to his, winning time at Temple, Baylor, he's a winner. Like at the end of the day, and I think he's working on turning around the Nebraska program. I think landing Dylan Raiola, such a prominent 5-star, recruit going to Nebraska at that time. I think that played a huge part. I know, he had kind of ups and downs last season, like you and I mentioned, but I expect him to really step up this season. And like you mentioned, Nebraska, they, success for them is 9 wins. If they don't get to that, Cornhusker fans, I think, are going to be really frustrated. Let me ask you, how do you expect them to fare in the Big Ten?
I'm looking at probably 2 to 3 more wins. If you can get to 5 wins, if you can get to 6-6, right? And have that kind of season. But if you can pull off another couple of wins in the Big Ten, then I think you're fine. I think you're doing fine. The schedule does well for them this year. It's a little look. The Big Ten schedule. I know everyone talks about the SEC and the gauntlet of the schedule. Hey, man, the Big Ten is no walk in the park, right?
True. Yeah.
Because even the overlooked schools, even the Minnesotas, even the Purdue's can come in and slap you around a little bit. It's not playing Rutgers and Maryland every week. There's a lot of good teams in the Big Ten. So I think if you can get a couple more wins there, then you wind up what's that put you 5-4 in the conference. I think you've done well.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on to another team, I wanted to go ahead and show Dylan Raiola kind of talking about this past weekend, this recruiting weekend, and having a large bowl in the weight room. Take a look.
Exciting things happening in Lincoln this week. We saw a photo shoot you guys had. You brought a live bull into the weight room. Can you tell us what that was about?
I was so worried about the bull using the bathroom in the weight room because it was a brand new weight room. I'm like, Coach, we can't have a bull in here, but it was cool. And the craziest part was I saw Coach Rhule get on top of it. I thought we were just going to stand next to it and take a picture, but he got on top. I was like, all right, that's fine. Let's do it.
Whose idea was it?
I think it was Coach Rhule and one of the other people in the department.
Hey, I'm with the Coach Rhule. You got it all. You got to do all you can in Nebraska. Got to compete in the Big Ten, tough conference.
But you notice what stood out to me was he wasn't worried about the bull charging anyone. He wasn't worried about the bull's horns. He's worried about the bull going to the bathroom in there.
Interesting, Dylan Raiola. Dan, Tony, let's move to a team that actually beat Nebraska in Lincoln. I thought this was a tremendous win for them this past season. Deshaun Foster and UCLA. Man, I think they have a massive season ahead, headed into Deshaun Foster's second season over at UCLA. Obviously, they got the Iamaleava, both Nico and Madden are over there. Nico, expected to start. I think he's going to really, really improve their offense, their passing offense specifically, because I thought, despite all the back and forth with, Nico and Tennessee, I thought Nico was going to really thrive and take that second step in Josh Heupel's system. Josh Heupel had a pretty, in my opinion, quarterback-friendly system, so to speak. And I thought Nico was going to take that next step. Now, Tony, let me ask you, previewing UCLA season, how do you feel about, Deshaun Foster in his second season? How do you feel about UCLA? Then how do you feel about the addition of Nico?
Well, for your audience that may not know this, I covered UCLA for 5 years. The last year of the Jim Mora era, and then the first 4 of the Chip Kelly era. So I got to know Deshaun really well as the running backs coach at UCLA, and a terrific guy. He really is. And the guy bleeds blue and gold. I mean, he was a star running back at UCLA. The UCLA fan base loves this guy. Oddly enough, out here in Charlotte, he's still thought of very well. He is thought of very well out here. He still has family out here. When he found out I was moving out here, he told me, he said, if you need anything, let me know. I'll hit my family up and they'll
that's
help
awesome.
you out.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
But look, Deshaun had a rough year last year. But I also think you got to put it in context. Context matters. You can't just look at the headlines, right?
Yep.
He took over in February when Chip Kelly left. UCLA fans, even from out here, when I was reporting that Chip Kelly was interviewing for offensive coordinator jobs, both in college and the NFL, UCLA fan base thought I was nuts. Why would he leave his $6 million a year job for this? People didn't understand. Chip Kelly hated being a head coach in college.
Exactly. Yes.
He would openly speak well of the portal, speak well of NIL, but he hated doing the work that went with
that. It's a different game. Exactly.
He hated going to booster events. I one time asked him about why we see all the other UCLA coaches, the women's basketball coach or Mick Cronin or why we see them at these events, but we don't see Chip. And Chip's answer was, I go where they tell me to go. That was his answer. When UCLA basketball made it to the Final Four a few years ago, he was told Casey Wasserman's charter plane will be there for you. You are going to Indianapolis to support the team. That was just his mentality. Chip would have liked to have just sat in his office, watched film, meet with his players and coaches. And part of how that impacted Deshaun's first year is Chip was horrible at high school recruiting. Terrible. Didn't put in the effort. You would never see him anywhere on a Friday night watching some local star in Southern California. Did not happen. Remember, he didn't have to do it at Oregon. Oregon recruited itself with the uniforms, and they were one of the first ones to go all in on the training facilities and the locker rooms and all of that. It recruited itself. You got to put in the work at UCLA. Deshaun Foster has done that. He had a rough season. He took over in February. They weren't going to get a big name coach from anywhere else. Not in February. Not, a month and a half before training camp starts. So he finished 5-7. But you can see the work being put in now. This upcoming season, he's got 31 transfers coming in. He's got 12 early enrollees that were there in spring camp from the high school recruiting class, a class that ranked 37th. So if my memory serves me correct, that puts him about 20 spots above Chip Kelly's last recruiting class. So there's the improvement. I know for the class of 2026, they have a top 10 recruiting class already. So Deshaun's putting in the work. You talked about Nico, and I like Nico, and I completely agree with you that Josh Heupel tweaked his offense to suit Nico. It was there for the taking with Nico. This was not about money. Nico, by all counts, is getting less NIL money at UCLA than he would have at Tennessee. And by the way, I'm one of those guys who, when you see the numbers flash up on digital media sites, it's rarely true. The 8 million. Yeah, it was 8 million over 4 years. This kid was not getting 8 million a year like the early reports. When people see these dollar figures, they need to settle down first and wait to see what's proven.
Do the homework.
But the reality is, he was the 7th best quarterback statistically in the SEC last year. His stats were pretty much on par with Ethan Garber's, the UCLA quarterback, who was widely panned by the UCLA fan base. So I think that while it's key getting Nico in, I think there's a bigger key. And they got Tino Sunseri as their new offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, who came over from Indiana. Did a great job last couple of years at Indiana. Really, really proven guy. And I think that is as much of a key to the offense's success as having Nico. I think Tino is going to put in a well-rounded offense. They're going to need some improvement on the offensive line over what they had last season. They're going to need a sound running game. They've got some good receivers, so the talent is there for Nico to throw to. Again, a family affair, because as soon as Nico went to UCLA, his younger brother Madden decommitted from Arkansas. He'd been there 2-3 weeks, maybe. I'm not sure he'd even been on campus yet, right? I'm not sure he even knew where to park his car yet. And he was bailing out to go to UCLA. A lot of this was engineered by Nick, the dad, for these two. Nick is what we call, look, I had a scholarship athlete daughter for college, scholarship tennis player. I know what involved parenting looks like. you look it up in the dictionary now, and Nick's picture is right there. He is involved in every aspect.
Shots, yeah.
But I think that I think that UCLA's got a chance. Look, again, expectations, right? They've got the Big Ten. It's tough. Again, we're talking. You're gonna have to play Oregon, Washington, USC. You're gonna have to play some of the traditional Big Ten powers. But I think, again, if you can flip this in the second year for Deshaun Foster and flip another 2 to 3 wins, get to that, 7-5, 8-4, and I think it's been a hell of a season for Deshaun and just carries into that 2026 recruiting momentum.
Absolutely. And I mean, looking at UCLA's season last season, they rough start, but I like the way they finished it. I really did. And I think it leaves a lot of optimism. It makes me very optimistic going into this season for them. I think the Nico get is huge. I look at Deshaun Foster's first season. You mentioned him taking over in February. It's almost like Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders took over Colorado pretty later than he would have wanted. And I mean, really struggled 4-8 in his first season. Then he had a full offseason, really develop, build it. And the second season, you see the effects of that. I think Deshaun Foster in the same way. That's what I expect. I expect
the one difference I will point out, which is probably obvious to anyone who saw Deshaun Foster at Big Ten Media Days last year. Deion is Deion, right? Yes. I mean, Deion recruits being Deion.
He plays the media like a fiddle. Yeah,
oh, absolutely. Yeah. And we, I don't even say they, we, the media, we bite every time. We take the bait from Deion every time. Deshaun's very soft-spoken, not on the practice field. He will get after his running backs. But he's very soft-spoken off the field. He's getting into that comfortable spot. I've watched all of his press conferences throughout the season, even after practice and so on. Chip was there with the media. It's interesting if we've got a quick minute for this. Chip hated meeting with the media, part of his job, but he hated it. We were allowed 8 minutes per session twice a week during camp, during practice. 8 minutes with the sports information directors hovering, looking at their watch. You're at 7 minutes. You got time for one quick question. Yeah, there was no going 10 minutes. It was 8. And then, of course, he had the post-game press conferences where, he felt the need to take me to task personally a couple of times, whatever. Deshaun had that really rough start where he really didn't know how to handle this massive press conference at Big Ten Media Days. But you watch him throughout the year, and he grew into it. He grew into comfort talking to the media. The UCLA beat is not a tough beat. The media gaggle, the press gaggle for every practice is 5, maybe 6 reporters. Not that difficult. Chip hated it, would get uncomfortable. He would take on Ben Bolch, the LA Times reporter, and me, say we focus too much on the big picture. And, he would always say, we're just here trying to have a great Wednesday. And you guys want to talk big. Look, man, it's my job, right?
Yeah.
Deshaun will take on any questions. He's good at it. He's gotten comfortable. He's much more relaxed. He's allowed access to the assistant coaches and the players with much more ease than what his predecessor did. I think I think he's already grown a lot into the job. It's not often you see a guy go from position coach straight to head coach of a Power 4 school. There's no time as a coordinator in between. He's growing into it, and I see him, knowing him the way I do, I see him coming more at ease with the job.
Absolutely. And I have a question on the recruiting front. Something you brought up that I think is really glaring and true. I mean, I don't think there's a lack of talent in the state of California. If anything, you can get all your talent from LA. Now, my boss, I work for Coach JB from Last Chance U, and this is a point that he nails, and it's very, very true. Recruit LA. Let me ask you, how do you think that applies to Deshaun Foster? How do you think he's done so far, year and a half in so far the job?
I think he's doing much better. Not LA, yes, but California. If I'm Deshaun, I'm not putting the circle around LA. I am putting it around California. The reason is this. It used to be much easier for USC and UCLA to recruit Los Angeles. Everybody stayed home. And then cable TV came along, right? And every game's on TV. So your desire to be on TV doesn't have to be with a UCLA or USC. You can go to Alabama, Birmingham, and be on TV every week, right? You can go to Coastal Carolina. So, and that's what a lot of these players want. They want to showcase their skills. That changes the recruiting front in a place like LA. But when you look at this 2026 class that he's got lined up already, that he's secured so far, it's all California kids. So he's done a much better job. Now, I always put this caveat on there. It's near the end of June, right? Talk to me in December about the 2026 recruiting class. They got 6 months to change their mind and go somewhere else. You know, I had a kid last week who had been committed to Miami, and a week later changed his mind, is committed to Georgia. These things happen with 18-year-old kids. It's a long way to signing day, but he's off to a good start. You look at the 2025 class, which really is his. These kids who are going to come in and play this year, and it's predominantly West Coast kids. So I think he's done a good job of driving it home. One of the big differences, you see Deshaun at the schools. You see him for more than just a photo op with the head coach, which is what Chip used to do. You see him meeting with the players. You see him at the in-home visits. You see him putting in the hours and putting in the work. Look, man, it's ugly. Recruiting is an ugly job. I'm not sure I could do it. I'm not sure I would be good at it, But Deshaun's putting in the work, which is something his predecessor really hated doing and really didn't put a lot of hours into.
Absolutely, man. Tony, it makes me pretty optimistic for UCLA, especially the future. And it sounds like he's doing the little things, putting in the time and the effort, and that's going to go a long way, I think, for UCLA's football program.
Yeah, you said the little things.
Yeah, doing the little things. It's all about the details. I think that goes a long way, especially in football. That's what my coaches used to say to me. It matters. Tony, I appreciate you. Your insight's been absolutely phenomenal. Great. I really appreciate it. My viewers love it. I can't thank you enough. Man, love to have you on again. And have a great Tuesday, my man. Thank you so much for joining.
Glad to do it, Bailey. Be well.
Absolutely. You too. Shout out to Tony Siracusa, managing editor for Last Word on College Football. Shout out to him for joining and giving us that insight, previewing Nebraska and Matt Rhule and Giant Bull in the weight room. Unbelievable, massive recruiting weekend for them. And then previewing Deshaun Foster and UCLA, Nico Iamaleava taking over at quarterback. Massive season ahead for them. I can't wait to watch them. And UCLA beat Nebraska and Lincoln this past season. Don't forget that. Something to think about as well. Very, very soon here, Cleveland Browns reporter for The Athletic, Zac Jackson, joins the show to preview and break down the Browns, quarterback situation, Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel's development. We're going to get the inside scoop from Zac Jackson, boots on the ground in Cleveland. I can't wait to get his insight on the Browns quarterback situation. And without further ado, our special guest is here. Cleveland Browns reporter for The Athletic, Zac Jackson, joins the show. Zac, happy Tuesday, my man. I can't thank you enough for joining. How you doing?
Hey, man, it's the downtime. Now, when you cover the Browns, the offseason is often the season, right? But we're taking the downtime. We're about 2 weeks removed from minicamp. We're about 4 weeks exactly from getting it started. And it's interesting. It's interesting on many fronts, but I'm sure you want to talk about the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I got a lot to talk about from the Browns. Myles Garrett, their division. I got a lot to talk about with you, my man. But let's talk about the topic of the hour, the quarterback situation. Man, so I covered Colorado this past season. A lot of my viewers are Colorado Buffaloes fans, and I think Buffaloes fans and Browns fans alike, so to speak, are eyes on the ground in this quarterback situation. Let me ask you, I wanted to ask you about Shedeur Sanders' development so far in the Browns offense, as well as Dillon Gabriel's development in the Browns offense, and what you've seen so far, boots on the ground in Cleveland. Your thoughts?
Okay, so from the first minute of rookie minicamp, when I saw Shedeur pick up a ball and throw it between drills, I've been impressed, and just talking to people, I think he's handled himself well inside the building, and they're impressed by what they saw. So I understand the angst, the anticipation People want to see him, and he's a talented kid, right? He really is. So I think people should also understand that a fourth quarterback is never going to get a chance with the ones in June, right? Like it's just not how it works, right? So that being said, there's probably never been a situation like this, or at least not one to which I can personally relate, right? You have four guys who, have some claim at the job. You have a clear leader to me in Joe Flacco, who was drafted the year Shedeur was in kindergarten, right? Has done it all and seen it all in this league, and has played in this offense before. He's the only one that has played in this offense before, so he's the leader. So, as far as what we saw in the spring, most every day, and this is like 6 or 7 viewings, Bailey, I saw Shedeur throw it with confidence. We didn't see him against much rush. We didn't see him against many guys who are going to play in the NFL, frankly. We didn't see him for more than 3 or 4 snaps at a time. So if he does right and studies right and continues to master the offense and throw the way he's thrown, they're not going to be able to ignore him, and he is going to get more chances in the summer. But we're going to see how that goes. I feel like, and Kevin Stefanski kind of half acknowledged this without going into detail, I feel like some days we didn't see much of Joe Flacco because he is the known commodity, right? They know what he is, right? So you have Dillon Gabriel and Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett has started 20-plus games in this league, some big games too. They feel like if he's at his best that he's a fit for this offense, and they feel like he's mobile enough to create when things break down. That probably gives him an edge on most of the other guys. Dillon Gabriel can create on the move. He is super accurate. He won them over in the process. Winning the interviews and winning on accuracy and command, and having come into 3 different situations in college in engineered and efficient offense. So I don't think Dillon Gabriel is big enough to play in the NFL. I've been flat out about that. But I will say this. The only 2 days that I thought Dillon Gabriel was impressive in the spring were the last 2 days. So does that mean he's catching on, right? And it just needed to click? It can mean that. But I'll answer whatever question you want. But I will say that outside of having a fairly strong feeling that Joe Flacco is going to start the opener in early September, I truly believe there are 100 ways this can go. And that means with who gets the reps in August and who's actually playing or on the team in November, because I don't know. And I think you can make a case for it going a number of different ways.
I understand. I don't know if it's fatigue, but I can't imagine as a Cleveland Browns reporter, because I just know from the Colorado fans, I mean, they're passionate. Like, they're passionate. They love this. I mean, I've never seen they have ESPN Cleveland putting out OTA stat sheets, and it's unbelievable, Zach. It's unbelievable to me. But I've shared the same sentiment to you the whole time. I thought Flacco was the presumed starter, the right guy to start for Cleveland. He just led you guys to a playoff appearance at least. I thought he was a great quarterback, Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP as well. I mean, I thought he was great, to have in the room to mentor the younger quarterbacks as well. Now, I got to ask you, going into the season, do you expect the Browns to roster 4 quarterbacks?
I don't. I think it's in play, but I don't. Right? I think the scenario where they do is if they feel like that one or both of the rookies just aren't ready. Because 2 years ago, they got themselves in a situation. They were all in on Deshaun Watson, right? And they had an opportunity late in training camp to trade Josh Dobbs, who we know has been around and has succeeded as a backup and is so smart, can learn an offense in a day.
Yeah.
And they chose to do that. Well, we didn't even get out of September. Deshaun got hurt. Wasn't sure if he could play. Dorian Thompson got thrown out there, thrown to the Wolves, was not ready. So I do think that there's a situation where they feel like, hey, if we can't have these rookies slip away, if no real trade presents itself now, we know somebody's going to get hurt eventually. So we can hold on to those 4. So I do think it's realistic, but I don't think it's ideal. So I think it really comes down to, okay, does Dillon Gabriel go out and have an outstanding camp and show that he's ready to play, even if it's in a pinch, even if he's never going to be a starter? So then he could be the number 2. And then Shedeur can, however camp goes for him, can continue to grow and play on the scout team and get himself ready for down the road. I just think, Bailey, I think if whatever went on with Shedeur and whatever reasons, multiple, or the reasons that he dropped that far, I think if any team thought that he was ready to play in September, he would not have dropped nearly as far as he did. Right. And I think that that's a sentiment that's shared from some folks inside the building of just the thought of, hey, we really got something here, but let's not judge him on every throw in June and July, and let's not think that it has to be this September. Like, let's let him go through the ups and downs and learn and have a great day in camp and have an awful day in camp and then see, right? These are long seasons. And, man, that's why I look so damn old, because I've covered a lot of Browns games in December, right, where they've had no chance. So I think it's in the 25 years they've been back, I think it's 11 or 12 times that at least 3 quarterbacks have played. And in 3 of the last 4 years, 4 different starting quarterbacks have played for this team.
Wow, man. Now, I want to look on the positive side for Cleveland here. Expectations with Joe Flacco as week 1 starter. I think he can have some success. I think that leaves, that takes Shedeur Sanders or even Dylan Gabriel playing out of the picture. Now, in my head, it's really hard for me to see Cleveland rostering 4 quarterbacks. One thing that popped into my head, Derek Carr retiring. Kenny Pickett has a connection playing with Kellen Moore Moore system in Philly. And, you mentioned that you think a rookie is more likely to, be shipped off potentially than a veteran.
No, if I said that, I didn't mean – I think both rookies will be on the team.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
But I think the situation where all 4 make it is where they're not sure the rookies are ready and where a trade does not materialize. Like New Orleans, that makes sense. If Philly would get in a jam, they could go back to Kenny Pickett in a day. He knows that offense, right? But I think – and the Browns tried this last year. On their initial 53-man roster on August 27th or whatever it was, they kept 4, and they didn't cut the 4th until the following week. So I think there's a scenario where they would keep 4 and let a trade scenario develop. So I could be totally wrong on this. But like I said, my feeling coming out of camp ending 2 weeks ago or whenever it was, is that it's really two-man competitions, right? It's Flacco versus Pickett for the starting job to be the starter from September until whenever, right? And then it's the rookies against each other and against just being a rookie in the grand scheme of things. So, eventually they have to decide who's that second active guy, who's 1 snap away, who can play, right? In an ideal world, that would reveal itself, right? And I think there is some chance that Shedeur goes out and plays so well in August that it's him. But I would have to say that. I'd have to see that to really believe that. And I think from any rookie, you have to see it, right? Even if these guys were both taken 50 spots ahead of where they were, how could you say that they're really going to ready or going to be ready, or that we're going to learn a ton from them playing against 3s and 4s on August 8th in Carolina?
Oh, I agree with you. Yeah, I 100% agree with you.
So that's why I think it was so notable that right away they were doing competitive drills in rookie minicamp. They were adding these things because they really want every possible evaluation period. And then when those preseason games come and those joint practices really come, then they can feel like, hey, does this match what we've seen altogether? Are the guys really showing in the meeting room that they're learning, that they're commanding the huddle and all of those things? Because that's what it's going to come down to, because whoever is number 2 has to operate like he's a snap away from having these guys jobs in their hands on September 7th.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And well said, Zach. Man, I want to look at the rest of the Cleveland Browns roster. I know you know everything when it comes to Cleveland Browns. I want to actually talk about the whole roster here.
Okay.
You guys signed Myles Garrett to a massive extension this offseason after, trade rumors, him, of course, requesting trade, so to speak, whatever you want to say. Revamped offensive line. You guys lose Jedrick Willis, but you got, revamped offensive line. How do you feel about the Browns, team as a whole outside of the quarterback room?
Yeah, I don't feel like this is a terrible roster. It should have never been a 3-win roster. Right now, do I think it's a playoff team? No. But do I see a path to being much better? Yes. And that's with the offensive line playing well. That's with the defense playing a lot closer than it did in 23 to 24. And I think sometimes the offense just put them in such bad spots that as well as they played for stretches just didn't show up. It's not a deep team. Right. And at the offensive skill positions where you got to score the points, there are some question marks, not just with depth, but with how guys are going to be on a week in and week out basis. But with Jerry Jeudy, with Njoku, these are really good players. And we've only seen it a few games from Cedric Tillman, but we saw it last year after not seeing it at all in his first season and a half. We know what Myles Garrett is. We know what Denzel Ward are. Those two are absolutely the best of the best, among the best of the best at their positions, and can wreck games and are not scared of any offense they're going to see. That being said, they play some really good offenses early in the year, and I don't know how many games you're going to win 17-16. So the offense is going to need to produce. They're going to need to be healthy. And if injuries do come into play, it's just not a deep team right now. But they're going to have a competitive training camp. They're going to try to develop some depth, And the main thing is they got to have young guys on this team who they feel good about, because they skewed older intentionally, trying to maximize what they had, keep the window open, and try to build the roster around Deshaun Watson. And when he flopped and the whole offense flopped, all of a sudden they had a team that was making a lot of money, and a lot of them were on the wrong side of 30, and they only won 3 games. And so, run the ball and play defense and win ugly and have a competitive season. It's realistic.
Right.
Turn the ball over and lose some guys to injury, and 2 wins is realistic. So let's see what happens.
Man, the roller coaster of the Cleveland Browns. Man, I'm optimistic for Cleveland, especially if Joe Flacco starts. I think, like you mentioned, the team is, more solid than people give credit. I thought it was a pretty solid team. 3 wins, especially with Jameis Winston, who I've had Super Bowl champion quarterback Sean King, who raves about Jameis Winston, thinks he's an starter in the league. I was really surprised that, Cleveland struggles. Now, going into the season, let's talk about AFC North. You guys got Aaron Rodgers in the division now over in Pittsburgh. How do you feel about the division, the AFC North as a whole? Joe Burrow, revamped. Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, they just got Jair Alexander. How do you feel about the division and the Cleveland Browns within that?
Yeah, I feel like it's loaded, right? I feel like the Browns would feel much better about themselves if they were in a different division. But they open up with the Bengals, and then they play Baltimore in Baltimore, and they might be 2 touchdown underdogs in that game. So either the Browns are going to have a great camp and be sharp in September and pull an upset, or they're going to be 0-2 and they're going to be climbing uphill, right? They always split with the Steelers. They have not won a regular season game in Pittsburgh in over 22 years. So that's been a problem. I think they're built kind of similarly, and they have a quarterback question. They have strong defensive cores that they feel good about, and we'll see what happens. Traditionally, this defense, and credit to Myles Garrett and to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who's unfortunately not going to play because of his neck injury, they've had their share of success against Lamar and against Joe Burrow. And I think some of that is familiarity. I think some of it is being built for speed against those guys. There's times they've caught Joe Burrow and the Bengals in a bad spot, and they've teed off on him. There's times the floodgates open and Burrow does what he does, and those guys, they have a lot of firepower. So that is a huge opener. It's at 1:00. It's not going to get the juice of some of these other games, but I think it's an absolutely huge opener to where the Browns could really make a statement and absolutely could beat the Bengals, or maybe the Bengals just have a pretty good offensive day and it's hard for the Browns to keep up. And then we see what they're going to be, which is offensively challenged, at least from what I think right now. Absolutely.
Well, I don't know how you feel about the Pittsburgh Steelers and having Aaron Rodgers, but you only have him have to play against him for 1 year. He told Pat McAfee today this is it. I think it's pretty expected. Now, I wanted to ask you brought up JOK's injury, him being out for the whole season, the impact of that, and you guys drafted a kid from UCLA in the 2nd round. Do you think he's going to fill in that role? How do you expect his development to be as a rookie?
Yeah, I think they're different players, but I definitely think that they took a linebacker at 33 preparing for life after JOK, and they feel really good about Schwarzenegger's instincts. He's a much bigger guy, and he's probably a true middle linebacker when you play base defense. But they looked and said, hey, we have a pretty massive gap here. I think the next 4 linebackers on the depth chart are all only signed through this year. So it's kind of planning ahead, but it's definitely planning for life without JOK. So that being said, they've invested a lot in defensive tackle, their first draft pick in each of the last 2 years. They went out and got Malik Collins in free agency after San Francisco made him a cap casualty. They have Grant Delpit, who's a pretty good safety, but they pay like a really good safety. And I think last year they felt really good about their cornerback group, and then both Newsome and Emerson did not have great years to match Denzel Ward's best year. So the pieces defensively tell me that this could be a big time, highly rated, highly havoc-causing defense, right? That forces turnovers and helps you win games. And I think that's the path, Bailey. I don't think that they say, we're going to beat the Bengals 35-34 in week 1 and then the Ravens 42-41 in week 2. I think they say we're going to try to win these games 20-19. We're going to try to run the ball. We're going to try to turn them over and score when we do. And we'll see how that goes. I think a lot of times early in the season, games kind of skew ugly, strange things happen. And they're just going to trust their playmakers, Judy, Njoku. Jerome Ford's going to be the starting running back, I believe. Judkins will be that guy sooner or later, but Jerome Ford has proven to be an NFL player. He's a producer. He's just not a Nick Chubb. He's not a 20 carry a game guy, right? So, like I said, there's decent talent on the offensive side. There's not a lot of depth. It's not a lot proven. There's pretty good talent on the defensive side. There's not a lot of depth. And then, of course, it comes down to quarterback play. You get efficient quarterback play and the occasional deep one, score some points, change your momentum, you're great. If you're shuffling guys in and out and playing guys who aren't ready, you're probably in deep shit.
Man, well said, Zach. Very, very well said. Oh, man. Final question for you. I can't thank you enough for joining. It's been an absolute honor. The ceiling for the Cleveland Browns this season, in your eyes, I know it's June, it's early. The ceiling in your eyes for the Cleveland Browns going into the season.
Yeah, I think the ceiling is third place in the division. I really do. I don't necessarily think they're going to be a 3 or 4 win team again, but I think that is. Now, if a rookie quarterback emerges or 3 or 4 of these rookie draft picks really look like keepers, right, and Denzel Ward and Garrett play like you pay them to and they're healthy again, like you can come out of this season feeling good, winning 5 games. And I think that's the goal, as much as you might have to be in the number 1 pick to get your quarterback of the future and move on. We'll see how that goes, see what it would take to get there. I don't know. I think there's ways that the Browns can be a functional football team, develop some good young players, and be a 5 or 6 win team that, isn't necessarily in it in December, but is a team that nobody wants to play against that is chasing a real playoff berth in December.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, most telling thing you said, Browns are going to win the games. If they win 10-19 or they're going to keep, plus 14, take Cleveland because Cleveland always keeps it close. They always make it ugly. That's what I love about Cleveland. One thing I'll say about Shedeur Sanders on that point, he's tough as shit. That's why I think him going to Cleveland is actually a good thing in my opinion. He's tough as shit. He gets knocked in the mouth. Every time he gets knocked in the mouth, spits blood out of the $100,000 grill and responds. I think eventually he's going to work his way up. I mean, who knows? It's going to take a while, and he's got to beat out Dylan Gabriel in the process. But, we'll see. Zach, I can't thank you enough for joining. Your insight's been great. Thank you so much for joining. Love to have you on again. And, can't wait for this football season. Can't wait to see how Cleveland Browns look 2025.
All right. Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Absolutely. You too, man. Thank you. Shout out to Zac Jackson, Cleveland Browns reporter for The Athletic, for joining the show, giving us that update, the insight on the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation. Cleveland Browns as a whole headed into the season, the AFC North, and I think he said it pretty well about the Browns. It's hard to be optimistic. I can't imagine as a Cleveland Browns reporter, but personally, I'm really optimistic for their season, having Joe Flacco at the helm and his impact on, having 2 rookie quarterbacks who I expect to sit behind and develop him. I think that's going to pay off and go a long way for, both those rookie quarterbacks. And not really, I know how Joe Flacco has pushed back on the mentorship thing. Joe Flacco, leads by example. That's, really going to be the biggest impact, in my opinion, for the young rookie quarterbacks. We're going to go ahead and take a commercial break. When we come back, talk about Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers, so like I mentioned with Zach, said on McAfee, this is probably his final season. I think it was pretty expected. He's on a 1-year deal, and they just drafted a rookie quarterback who I think is a baller and just needs to develop and work his way up, Will Howard. But check out this commercial with my man, Super Bowl champion Sean King, and I'll see you guys on this other side. If you're watching, hit that like button, subscribe, become a member of the BPM Army today. On the other side, we're going to break down, Aaron Rodgers, like I just mentioned, and Ric Flair's interaction with Shiloh Sanders. Ric Flair really praised Shiloh's character, which I think we can attest to. The great character, Shiloh, good kid, and I think he's going to have a TV show one day. But hit that like button, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Peace. JJ McCarthy next up to start. Sean, I believe you coached JJ McCarthy at IMG, I believe, correct?
I did. And
so what are your thoughts on his potential as the Vikings starting quarterback?
Well, here's a part of the conversation that the average Joe won't acknowledge. Mm-hmm. It looked like JJ was beating Sam Darnold out before he got hurt in the preseason last year. All the momentum was that JJ's having a great camp. He had just had the really, really good preseason game. And the word on the street was he was going to be the opening day starter and Sam Darnold was going to be his backup.
Right.
Now, JJ gets hurt with a season-ending injury, so we'll never know in totality if that was true or not. But obviously what they've seen from JJ made them believe that we can't invest in Darnold even in a short-term window, because of what we think about J.J. McCarthy. So you have to go by what the Vikings have done. If they didn't think J.J. McCarthy was ready, either health-wise, talent-wise, or preparedness-wise, then they would have given Sam Darnold the contract that Seattle gave him.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point, Sean. And going into JJ as a player, what do you like about his game as a quarterback? What do you don't like? And how do you think he fits into the Vikings offense now that Sam Darnold's gone? And obviously they brought in 2 pieces in free agency, big offensive line signings, and going along with Christian Darrisaw and others on that offensive line. How do you feel about JJ fitting into that offense as well?
I think he's Brock Purdy with a better arm. And here's what I mean by that. If Brock Purdy, knowing what we know now, was drafted in the first round, everybody would be like, San Francisco made a great pick.
Right.
He's proven to be their starting quarterback. They're about to pay him franchise quarterback money. He's not a top 5 guy, but hell, there's not a whole lot of top 5 guys walking the planet. J.J. McCarthy, and I mean Brock Purdy because he's a football junkie. Brock Purdy's a football junkie. Their understanding of the game of football is elite. Brock Purdy's a much better athlete than people give him credit for. J.J. McCarthy is a much better athlete than people realize. They're about the same size and stature, build. Only thing is the ball is more live coming off of J.J.'s arm than it is Brock. Where Brock has to throw with anticipation to get the ball down the field, J.J. has a above average arm.
Man, and Vikings fans have to be excited about that, hearing that. And that's something you mentioned in the beginning. Looked like JJ was beating out Sam Darnold. Now I got to ask you, Sam Darnold this season won 14 games in this Vikings offense. Now with them going in next season, arguably the best wide receiver duo in the NFL, hell of an offensive line. Defense, I think, is improving. Obviously brought in a couple defensive tackles, Jonathan Allen and others as well. The potential of the Vikings this season of J.J. McCarthy at the helm, are you confident going into this season? Do you think they'll end up signing Aaron Rodgers? There's a lot of talk of that. How do you feel about the situation going forward?
I wouldn't sign Aaron Rodgers, but if they do, I understand it because you'll be signing Rodgers to a 1-year deal.
Yeah, for sure.
Here's the thing, and I want to be very clear and concise when I say this. You can't hold these young quarterbacks accountable to the guys that have drawn outside the lines. And I mean, C.J. Stroud is a rookie. I mean, Jaden Daniels as a rookie. Like, you've got to give these guys an opportunity to develop and grow. And you can't do that if you play not to lose. Peyton Manning threw 25-plus interceptions as a rookie. What if Indy would have been a team that they thought could win a championship, and they'd have been like, we just can't wait on Peyton. We got to get a vet in here. It's not going to turn. We never would have seen the greatness of Peyton Manning. So, this is going to be JJ's first year as a starter if he ends up being a starter. He needs the grace that you should give a first-year starter in the league. He should show flashes of brilliance. He should be better the second half of the season than he is the first. If he has a breakout C.J. Stroud year, all the better for Vikings fans. But I wouldn't get frustrated if he does struggle at times in his first year going through the National Football League.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing, I think it's a great fit for McCarthy. We saw flashes in the preseason, and I think the one thing people aren't really talking about is the Vikings in free agency. I think those 2 pickups they got from the Colts, Will Fries and I can't remember the other guy they signed as well. 2 huge acquisitions to an offensive line that I already believe is really, really good. You Christian Darrisaw left tackle, you got Dalton Reisner, product of 6-0 Academy, and Matt. Man, I mean, if JJ can figure it out being basically a first-year starter again and they have that patience with him, I think they're going to be pretty damn good under McCarthy. Shit.
And Bailey, they added Jordan Mason in a trade from San Francisco.
Yeah, got another running back.
People forget Jordan Mason had made people not really worry about when Christian McCaffrey was coming back until he got hurt. Remember how good he was running, and then he got banged up and he never got back healthy. So they re-signed Aaron Jones. They added Jordan Mason. I mean, you could argue outside the quarterback because that's still a blank space on the board. They've got the best offensive group of talent from 1 to 10 of anybody in the National Football League.
Yeah, that's a great point.
TJ Hawkinson's a top 5 tight end. Justin Jefferson's a top 3 receiver. Jordan Addison is a top 10, number 2 receiver. I mean, that offensive line is definitely top 3, 4 in football. I mean, they got a really good group.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, we'll see. Aaron Rodgers, you don't think they'll go after Aaron Rodgers?
They might, and I would understand it. You bring him indoors. You bring him in to take a 1-year shot to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would get it. I wouldn't do it personally.
Right, absolutely. And I think they only do that if they don't think JJ's ready, if they think he needs.
I don't think it has anything to do with JJ. I think it has to do everything with Aaron.
Okay.
If they could give JJ another year behind Aaron Rodgers, take some of the expectation and pressure off of him from having to be a guy, as you mentioned, that's starting on the team. A lot of people think if they had experienced quarterback play as a Super Bowl contender, I think they would take that shot at a reasonable price. My thing with Aaron is this. I just think that's the one position where the guy's got to be all in, 10 toes down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Out of respect for how much bread Aaron has made and all the other things he got going on in his life, I just don't think football actually means that much to him. I think he wants to play because he likes the platform, but I don't think he wants to participate in all the things that people don't see that goes along with being a great team.
There's a reason I ended with that, because Aaron Rodgers told Pat McAfee this is his final season with the Steelers, and I think it's going to be a pretty effective one having DK Metcalf at right wide receiver. I expect it. To be honest with you, let's be real. Russell Wilson was good. I love Russell Wilson, but man, his progression, he loved checkdowns. He loved checkdowns. People gave Shedeur Sanders all this shit for checkdowns. Russell Wilson used checkdowns a lot. And he is, I don't know. I think having Aaron for the Steelers offense, to all the Steeler fans who have, complained and, seen the struggles of the passing offense, I think this is going to be a real big difference for them, in my personal opinion. You heard Sean King talk about, Aaron Rodgers, whether he's bought in or not. I expect him to be bought in. Whether that, follows through and happens, we'll see. 1 year for Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, and then Will Howard taking over next. Ben Roethlisberger, we'll see. Interesting, folks. Man, this has been a great show here on this fine Tuesday. If you're watching, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, become a member of the Bailey Price Media Army today. One final thing I wanted to cover before we get out of here, this is something that I really like seeing. Ric Flair met with Shiloh Sanders, and in doing so, praised his character. I'll go ahead and read what Ric Flair posted. He said, "For a man that can have an ego bigger than God, you are the most handsome and nicest man I have ever met in my life. Shiloh Sanders, the son of Deion Sanders, thank you for the couple hours we had together. In my mind, in Tampa right now, Tom Brady is gone, so you are absolutely the man." And his iconic woo at the end. Shout out to Ric Flair. Ric Flair is an absolute legend, and seeing him with Shiloh, who I think is in a great spot with Tampa Bay, with Todd Bowles, I think he's going to have a great opportunity to work up. I think he's going to make the roster in Tampa Bay. I think that safety room at Tampa is light. I think they have safeties that are like Shiloh in a way. I think Shiloh is a kind of an old school safety, so to speak, when it comes to the new NFL, kind of a slower, not as great of hips. But they have Jordan Whitehead in the room, and that's somebody who I really compare Shiloh Sanders to. One thing I want to show is the interaction between Ric Flair and Shiloh Sanders here. Take a look.
You just say he'll round me up, bro. Ready? Yeah, come on, man. You still got it, though.
Hell yeah, man.
You might could be Coach Prime in a race.
How about a woo for Shiloh?
I gotta say that for you. The what? Woo! Dang! That does get loud.
Nature Boy, here. Shiloh. Woo!
Hey.
Man, that's awesome. Ric Flair is a freaking legend, and seeing him with Shiloh is obviously pretty cool. Shiloh Sanders, I've been saying it, is very entertaining. he's got to have a TV show. And man, he is quite entertaining, quite funny. And sticking on Ric Flair, one thing I wanted to show is a shout out to Big Dog Chico and Uncle Neely. Neely told a story about Ric Flair and Coach Prime back in his Jackson State days. I wanted to show here. Pretty entertaining story. Take a listen to this.
It's your boy's Ric Flair story. Coach Prime was coaching at Jackson State, and we were playing Alabama A&M for their homecoming, which means it's their home game. And Alabama A&M brought out Ric Flair, for the pregame. And so he's at halftime doing the coin flip. Now, keep in mind, Rick's supposed to be with them.
Yeah.
After the coin get flipped, Rick is walking over to Jack State sideline to find Coach Prime. And the Alabama A&M folks, no, Mr. Flair, you got over here. We need your. He's like, no, I'm going to find Prime.
Right. I fulfill my obligation. We know why we're here.
$1,000 to walk off from him.
We know why we're here, dog.
The Coach Prime effect. It's Chico and Uncle Neely. Pretty entertaining there. And the Shiloh Sanders effect on Ric Flair back in Prime Jackson State days. And Shiloh Sanders, Shiloh meeting with Ric Flair. Ric Flair is a legend. Love to see that. One thing I will show before we get out of here talking Shiloh Sanders, Shiloh, in a way, addressed Shedeur Sanders speeding. Take a look.
Here in Tampa, we got to be careful crossing the street, especially if Shedeur's out here.
Oh, man. Shedeur made a mistake or mistakes. He's going to learn and he's going to move forward. Shout out to Zac Jackson for joining the show earlier. Cleveland Browns reporter giving an update on Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders' development in the Browns office, giving us that insight and Rhule into that Browns quarterback situation. And I can't wait to see it. I've been saying Joe Flacco is going to be that guy. And I really think the effect of having him in the room is going to, really, play a big part in Kenny Pickett and Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders' development, and a little Kenny Pickett too, sure as well. But I think Kenny Pickett ultimately is going to be the odd man out in the Browns quarterback room. Chat, let me know in the chat whether you agree or disagree with that. But folks, this has been a great show. If you're watching, hit that like button, subscribe, become a member of the Bailey Price Media Army. Today we'll be back on Thursday here on Bailey Price Media Live at 3 p.m. Eastern. Talking all things college football news, NFL news, and more as we get closer to the season. We are almost there. We are almost to July here, where stuff gets a little bit interesting in the media, but we aren't going to see any football here until later July and August here. So we're almost there, almost to a massive season of football ahead, and I can't wait to cover it here on Bailey Price Media Live. Folks, if you're watching, hit that like button, subscribe, become a member of the BPM Army. I'll see you guys on Thursday.